Hello, welcome back to I Got Board Game. I got a
Hello.
board game.
I got my game.
I'm Ben.
I'm Daniel,
So yes,
not
today
John.
I am joined by
Actually,
not
I'm
John,
John.
by not John, by my cousin Daniel, who I play a lot of games with when I get the chance.
Hmm.
When he's back here visiting, always try to show him new games. And he started his collection over these recent years too
Hmm.
of board games, right?
I mean, here are all the games that I have.
That behind that door is all board games.
All board games. All board games.
So today I have Daniel here with me to do a review of a co-op deduction game. And so Daniel, what is that game? You want to hand it to me?
Yeah.
Pass it to, thank you, thank you. Is
It's
Shipwreck
Shipwreck
Arcana.
Arcana.
The Shipwreck Arcana. By the way, we only practiced that passing a few times. You know,
No, it was first
could
time.
do it
First time.
could do it better,
So good.
but yes, the Shipwreck Arcana,
Okay,
which
right hand.
came out in, let me look it up real quickly. Came out in 2017. I believe it was on Kickstarter, if I remember. And then they had a
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter later when they had an expansion for the game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I only got the game toward the end of last year. And actually, Daniel and I recorded some a gameplay of it,
Yeah. Fabulous.
unboxing
Fabulous.
and gameplay. So you can check that out. I'll include the links in the description. But now this is our chance to finally review it for you after playing it a couple more times
Mm-hmm.
recently. And so before we get into sharing our thoughts on it, I'll do a really brief overview of the game, how it flows, the theme, the idea behind it. And so to do that, I will share this image from Board Game Geek of a game in session. And so basically the setup will have this Black Hours card, which is kind of a tracker for your victory and your doom, the green and the red token. They'll both start at 0, and basically whichever one reaches 7 first is the result of your game. You either win if you get the green token to 7, or you lose if the red doom token gets to 7. But the whole theme behind this game, it is ultimately an abstract
Mm-hmm.
logic game. So the theme doesn't really come in that much. But the idea is you're kind of in this kind of realm of, like, I don't know, kind of like fantastical realm, dream realm,
Mm-hmm.
where you're in the shipwreck and you're with your crew, and you all have different fates, ways that you're doomed. You're going to die, basically, all of you. And so you need to figure out what each other's fate is so that you can avoid it. So that's the big picture theme. It doesn't really come into gameplay at all. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned, it's a cooperative deduction game, a logic game. So being cooperative in deduction, meaning it's not a social deduction game, but you're all working together and very much using logic principles to kind of narrow down options and hopefully get to the right answer. And so the way it'll work is you'll have this hour card put out here, and then 4 cards on the right from the main deck. And you won't have these cards at the bottom here or this top one yet. This is, like I said, a game in session. But then each player will get their own color tokens 1 through 7 to put face up in front of them. And then on a player's turn, the game's going to go clockwise. On a player's turn, a player is going to draw from the bag. The bag will have these black tokens that you see put out here already. These black tokens numbered 1 through 7 also, and it'll be 3 copies of each number. So 3 copies of 1, 3 copies of 2, all the way to 7. So on a player's turn, they start by pulling out 2 tokens randomly, and only they look at those 2. And then they'll choose one of those 2 to play out here to one of these cards. And the way they determine what they can play out here is the rules on the cards themselves. So for example, if you can see in this image here, like this last card here is, if the sum of your fates, so of the 2 tokens, that's what they're called, your fates, if the sum of the two that you drew add up to 7, 8, or 9, you can play one of them under this card. So you're always just playing one of your fates, one of the two tokens you're drawing each turn. But then if you do play one of your tokens here, that is the way you're giving hints to the rest of your teammates of what number you're still holding, because that is the token, the fate that you need your team to guess or eventually guess or try to get correct. And so if you're putting one of your tokens under here, like on a previous turn, in this example, someone put a 4 here, that means at that point, the other token they were holding added to 4 would sum to 7, 8, or 9. So it could be a 3, 4, or 5 that they were holding at that time. And so that's kind of where the logic comes in. You're trying to see which rules that are currently out here can my token satisfy, and which one should I play under that would give my teammates, the best chance of guessing the token that I'm still holding, the one that I didn't play.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the limited communication in this game, where obviously if you're drawing the two, you can't tell your teammates like, oh, I drew this number. It's like the whole idea is you're trying to follow these logic rules and how you play a token under them to hint at your teammates how to guess what you're holding. And so then there are ways to kind of help your teammates keep track of their kind of logical deductions, because they can speak with each other. And so when they're speaking to each other, like I mentioned during setup, each player has their own colored line of numbers in front of them. That's for your teammates to actually use to keep track of what they think you're holding. Because again, you can't tell your teammates anything else other than the token you played, right? That's their only way of communicating. And so you can't manipulate this number line in front of you either. But your teammates are the ones who can tell you, you know, please turn over the 1 or the 2 to basically the blank side of these tokens, to keep track of, okay, they don't think you're holding a 1 or a 2. So it could be the remaining numbers that are still face up. And so that number, those numbers will remain that way, face up and face down, however your teammates told you, until they actually make a guess as to what you're holding. Because, you know, you could play the token like this 4, like I mentioned, and they could either guess or choose not to guess. And so if they don't guess, it'll go on to the next teammate and they'll draw their 2 and follow the same process, putting one under one of these rules. And then, you know, the other teammates could discuss, manipulate their number line to keep track of what they're reasonably deducing. And then it could come back to you eventually, where you'll draw a second one, right? You won't draw 2 new ones, but you'll draw up to 2. So 1 more in addition to the one you were holding previously. And you'd have to follow the rule again, putting one out here and helping your teammates still try to figure out whatever token you decided to hold on to. And so if they guess eventually, if they get it wrong, your team will be penalized a certain amount by having the doom track move forward for the incorrect guess. And then also there is a kind of time element to all these cards that are out here that basically are the symbols at the bottom, these moon symbols, which it doesn't matter what the symbol actually is.
Right.
Each one counts as like 1 unit of time. And so certain tokens, certain numbers have these little marks on the side that also indicate how much time they take up. And so eventually when you exceed the time on the cards, like this 4 counts as 2 times, this 2 counts as 1 time, this card can only last for 3 times. So actually in this round, this card would basically be discarded at the end of the turn, which they call fading. And so once a card fades or is discarded, your team is also penalized for losing that card, unless your teammates actually guessed your number correctly on that turn. And so, yeah, that's the whole idea. You're going to be continuing this until either you've kind of guessed wrong too many times or had too many cards fade away that the doom track reaches 7, or that your teammates, each time they do guess someone's number correctly, will advance the victory token forward 1. And so you'll need to eventually have that get to 7 before the doom token gets 7 to win the game together. And so that is a very brief summary of how the game plays. And so coming back, we'll start talking about what we like about the game or thought was done well about the game, the pros, starting with Daniel.
Yep. It is a great game. Number one, not only because did we win both times we played
You
or
mean
were we
recently?
recorded? Yeah, when we recorded
Oh,
it.
when we recorded?
I think we won, right?
I think we did. I think we did.
So I typically obviously like games that I win at for obvious
Yeah,
reasons.
that's his bias here.
This is a 10 out of 10 must play because I won before. No, yeah, I guess what really appealed to me this game, at least initially, was just the art. It's a very, I think, I like to categorize myself as a casual gamer. So for all those expert gamers, I apologize. My reasons for liking the game may not be, I guess, not what's the word? Well, it might not match up with yours, but I guess what first appealed to me this game is the art looked really pretty. I'm a sucker for easy and pretty and clean art. So yeah, it looked really nice. And so I really enjoyed that. But I guess I'm also I do really enjoy deduction games, especially those pure logic-based deduction games, and so that really appealed to me as well. And also, I mean, I'm not particularly good at social deduction, and I know Ben didn't really mention the social deduction side of this, and it's not really a major component, but I still feel there's a little bit of that because even though you give a hint, like the one of the fates to under those Arcana cards, I guess the time it takes for you to do so, even though I guess in theory you're not supposed to express any reaction to that, like time requires to give a hint. All of those factors aren't necessarily logical, but they have some sort of social element. Like, oh, why did my partner? Why did Ben take so long? It must be because there are multiple options that he could have taken where you could put maybe the tile here or like which tile to use, and those would result in different kinds of I guess information. And so I enjoy, I guess, just deduction as a whole, definitely more logic than social, but there's this nice kind of using all these logic things, and then when you get it right it feels really good. I know when I initially watched reviews of the game I was like, it's not that satisfying, and then when I actually got it right it was like, oh, I feel amazing.
I'm a
But anyway,
genius.
I'm yeah. I can tell the future with these tarot cards.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I get that feeling too. And yeah, I mean, just to clarify for people, there is that social element of how you read your teammates, right?
Mhm.
That you can include in the game with how you're deducing with what you're saying. Like someone taking longer is maybe because they're thinking it through more, because their tokens fit more of the rules.
Mhm.
Than maybe if it's just very clearly it only fits one rule, they would play a number really quickly.
Right.
And that kind of makes the deduction more straightforward in that case. But I mean, I just say not social deduction because it's not that
It's
actual
not. It's
category of
not. Yeah,
games
it's not
of
the
like
core
bluffing. There's
gameplay.
no bluffing at
No,
all.
no,
It's
no,
a
no.
team game. No
Well,
secret. No like
unless you want
secret.
to lose,
No
but
secret
yes.
trader element. None of that.
Mhm.
So not
Yeah.
social deduction in that technical sense of
No, no,
category.
not at all. Yeah.
But then also, on the artwork, like to give you guys a better idea, like they are tarot sized cards. So that's very nice. Like for a game that has a deck of about 20 cards, to
Mhm.
make them these bigger size cards that are easier to see, fit more stuff on it, especially the text and the rules clarification of each card. Like it's really nice. But yeah, going off of the artwork though, it definitely has that like tarot, but also like abstract, somewhat abstract art, which looks really nice, and it fits with even the aesthetic of like the cover art that they have on the box.
Yeah.
And yeah, at least like production wise, it's really nicely done. There's also the back of the cards that are mostly the same looking, but still different abilities, because that's a part I didn't mention in the rules, which I'll go into now
Right.
because I do see it as a pro. Is once you guess a card correctly, right? I mentioned fading away is like losing the card, and in a sense spending too much time, and then you're penalized for that. If you do ever guess the card correct, you get to flip it over and keep it as basically a one-time ability to use
Mhm.
on any future turn.
Mhm.
And it basically is like some kind of ability that lets you maybe ask another question, like in this case, right? Like before making your prediction or your guess as to the number that your teammate's holding, you can use this card to ask them first if the fate that they're still holding is a 1, 2, or 3. So it helps you
Mhm.
narrow down again. And
Yeah.
I think that mechanic is really nice as a part of this game because it seems very fair to the
Right.
game. Like the game when you start, it can seem very tough,
Mhm.
especially when you're putting one fate under a rule, a card, and your teammates are discussing in it. I think if you're pretty good at the deduction, it can usually narrow down to like 2 or 3 possible numbers, just through playing one token. Uh, but then it can feel really tough. It's like, do we take a chance and guess, with this 33% chance of getting it right, or do we wait? But then if we wait too long, the card will fade and we're penalized
Mhm.
anyways. And so kind of it can feel tough at the beginning, but then once you get one right and you get an ability, it kind of makes it more fair, right? That you got it right, you got your 1 point, and then
Mhm.
you can in the future get a little more help with guessing another one.
Right.
And I think it's fair too because you're potentially gonna have more clues out at a time,
Yeah.
so like kind of multiple players information out there. And so if you're always going through the same reasoning process, you're kind of basically getting in a worse and worse situation where there's more information out there, but we're not necessarily getting like that much closer each time to guessing it correctly. So having an ability that you kind of earn each time to help you with that, I think makes it more fair feeling.
Mhm. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I guess not on the same vein, but I think another thing that really appeals to me is I personally don't have a huge brain, so I like games that don't require too much complexity. I mean, I think logic, you can argue logic is you have to think and be complex, but I think gameplay mechanics, like, it's not very hard. At the end of the day, you pick two numbers, take one number, put it down, and you guess the other number. So it's a very like easy like flow. What's the word? Yeah, the flow through and the what you have to do in the process. It's, I guess, what you want to choose to do and what numbers to guess. Like, that's the hard part, but it's not like what to, yeah, we'll have to remember this step and that step, and then if I do this is another step. No, it's not so much that. And so as a noob gamer, this light kind of game made it really appealing to me because, yeah, again, there's the heavy deduction. I don't want more additional mechanics I have to keep in mind in addition to the I guess the deduction, which is already turning up my brain CPU all the way to 100. But yeah, yeah. So like, and I think I think maybe I'm speaking for, maybe not. I shouldn't say that. Like I would say a substantial fraction of people who game aren't that like invested, so it's like easy to pick up. They don't want like first game, let's play Gloomhaven. Okay, we've set up. We've ran out of time. Time to go home. We'll play it next time. Like that sort of thing. So like it's a very quick filler game, I guess is the term. Oh, look at that. Me becoming an advanced game with all this vocab. But no, yeah, so I think it's really, I like that sense. So it's really more friendly to pick up with friends who are more casual and kind of introduce them into the board game genre. And so I feel like I'm more towards that camp. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, just being very accessible from a learning standpoint, and not too heavy. But yeah,
Yeah, I think like mechanics wise, it not being heavy, but gameplay wise, still
yeah,
having a like this is like my pro that's somewhat related is that the game I still think is like punishing,
mm-hmm,
like, and I think that's good, right? You like I think I've said it a lot in these reviews of co-op games, like you need it to be tough because you're all working together, right? If it's just like something you all can do easily together, it's like
mm-hmm.
that's not really a game then, like if
So
in a competitive setting, if you're all doing something easy but you're seeing who can do that better or
best,
faster,
yeah,
then it's like, okay, that's still a game and there's competition. But
right.
if you're all like competing in a game together and it's easy, it's like, well, what are you really doing?
We'll be
So
like, I'm a 6 and a 4. Which one do you want? Okay, here, it's a 4.
and I think it is like more punishing or just difficult
Mhm.
because even just the scoring, right? Like from my rules,
Yeah.
like each time you finally guess one number right, you get 1 point, and you need 7 points to win, right? So you basically
Mhm.
need to do it 7 times correctly. But then
Right.
one time that you get it wrong, you're losing, I think it's 2 points, right?
Mhm.
And then if the card fades too,
Mhm.
like you lose another point. So at most you
Mhm.
can lose like 3 points at a time, which is almost halfway to losing,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think then it kind of pushes you to really work together and kind of reason it through together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good challenge that the game has.
Yeah. And I guess piggybacking off that. Oh wait, I think it's actually two. Anyway, the 2 and 1. I think it's you switched it. Anyways, whatever. You lose that minute. It's easy to lose. I guess is the thing you were trying to convey. But I think I think they do also a good job with regards to I think the timing that Ben mentioned with regards to how many times you can use a clue, and I guess how many times you can use is not really the perfect term here because it's a little bit more complex than that. But how they kind of do a good job balancing like clues are very like give you a lot of information and how many times you can use it versus the ones that are a little bit more ambiguous and how many times you can use it. So they do a good job in balancing that aspect of it. So I think mechanic. I guess I don't know if this falls under mechanics, but I think they do a good job in organizing everything. Yeah.
Yeah, looking at the rules again, yeah, you're right. It's if you get it wrong, you lose the doom
Mhm.
forwards 1. If it
Yeah.
fades and you
Two.
didn't guess or you got it
Right.
incorrect, it fades 2.
Yeah. And
So
so
that's how it's 3.
it really penalizes you if you just start going like, oh, it's 4 and 1. Oh, well, let's just guess one. We're not going to lose any. Yeah. So because if you only you do get if you use up the clue and you're wrong, you're halfway to losing. So it really makes the team more cautious and more intentional and deliberate with their guesses instead of just let's go. It's not that forgiving for
But yeah,
some
no, I
folks
do.
like me.
I do like what you're pointing out. Yeah, with the timing of the cards and them fading away,
Mhm.
each card having a different amount of time that it can last, and then each of the different numbers also indicating how much time it causes to
Right.
pass. Which, like,
Yeah.
I know in the most recent time we played, just like this month, was
Yeah.
that's something we ended up thinking about, which I don't think we thought
Yeah.
about when we first played it. Where
Mhm.
then someone might be able to play one of their numbers to one of two cards, but
Right.
then maybe they're playing on one that will cause it to fade to force their team to guess. Like,
Right.
you
Right.
guys know it, so just guess, or it might be a way to try to keep the game going. It's like they could have
Mhm.
maybe played this token on this other card, but they played it
Right.
on this one so that it doesn't fade. So maybe it's a sign of like, maybe we should
Wait.
just still
Yeah.
deduce but not guess
Yeah.
yet.
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
keep the game going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a I think that was a kind of another layer that I thought was cool to learn about the game
Mhm.
when playing it.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
definitely.
I think what also comes to mind is the first time we played it, like those recordings we did
Mhm.
and the plays we did that day. We went into it with questions, right? Like because we were
Right.
imagining how the game works. Like, what
Mhm.
if I drew these numbers, or what if I'm holding on to my number and draw a new one? Like, how do I give my clues then? But it's if you just follow the rules, like
It'll
as
be fine.
as clearly as it's written, and it is really clear, right? It's just
Mhm.
like I think I know we maybe got hung up on it because we were trying to imagine how the
Mhm.
game flows without playing it.
Yeah.
But if you just follow the rules, which are clear, like it's very
Mhm.
elegant, I would say, how it works out. Like it does
Yeah.
work out. And like
Mhm.
there are no, like, I don't think there were any hiccups. Like there are things you could do that were bad choices,
Right.
right?
We didn't do any of those though. We're good. We're
Yeah.
smart. We're experts. Those are only for the amateurs. Yeah.
But like bad choices and situations that you could put your team in based on how you played your token to a certain rule, where they're like,
Mhm.
wait, if they played the token there, it would have like helped us deduce even more, So
Mhm.
they did kind of the not so optimal play
Yeah.
there. But aside from that, like it does work. Like the
Mhm.
all the deduction and the hinting at each other through the rules on the cards, that
Yeah.
main gameplay just works, and that I
Yeah.
think that's really good.
Yeah.
On that point, like even the rules are just this.
1 page or no, 2 page,
Yeah, very,
three
very
page.
simple, very
Yeah, it's
simple.
simple. And there's
So
pictures for the people like me who can't read.
yeah. I mean,
No, no, I can
even just
read.
having those pictures to point out, like,
Yeah.
where things should go or how to
Mhm.
understand different parts of it. It's very
Yeah.
clear. And so,
Yeah.
I think, like, going on to that in the production, like I was saying, each person has their own colored
Mhm.
number tiles, and these are all like very light. I think it's wood,
Wooden.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's really nice.
Mhm.
Like production wise, it's just nice. It's not like cheap cardboard punch outs you give everyone's, like it just came in their own bags with their own colored numbered
Mhm.
tiles. And
Yeah.
so that's very nice. And I think that's kind of the pros that really come to mind. I think it's a really elegant cooperative deduction game,
Mhm.
and those things stick out to me, right? Like I like co-op games and deduction. You have to make it work
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want it to be a deduction game that comes into a lot of stumbling blocks on
Mhm.
different steps, not making sense or messing things up easily.
That's
So
true.
it flows really well.
Yeah.
And so
I
then going on to the cons, things that we didn't think worked well or maybe could be better, or just things we might not enjoy about
mm,
the game in the long run.
mhm. Yeah, this mountain is a little bit too high. Should be shorter. That's my only con. No, I'm kidding.
So
Um,
this is a 10 for you, I see.
it's a 10 out of 10 must buy. Only because we've never lost except for the first two. But ever since we've never lost. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think despite all these great things we've said about the game and how everyone should buy it, not a sponsor. I think, yeah, the main thing that stuck with me is stuck out. I moved to Canada. No, all the Canadian viewers, you're amazing. But no, I think the main thing that sticks out to me is just the um, disparity in the theme and the actual mechanism of the gameplay, and that's pretty obvious if for those who've tried the game. And I think I guess with all games, right, there's like if you want to make it more complex and if you want to dive more into the theme, like you can do so, but it'll make it more, yeah, long, lengthy, and like less simple. And so, at least for me, in my noob game experience, whatnot, I think there's in my experience, an inverse relationship with how complex it is versus how. Oh, I guess I was just saying versus how easy it is to play, and I was like, well, that's by definition how it works. But like the ease of, the inverse relationship with the complexity and how much the game is able to dive into that theme. Obviously, there's probably outliers and exceptions, but at least here, yeah, I think the game uses that kind of theme of kind of fates and fortune and future and destiny and whatnot, just to kind of inform everything and the art and all that. But when it comes to gameplay, like when I've taught this game to friends, I was just like, so this is a game about trying to find out your destiny, and then now let's scrap that. It's a numbers game. Let's
Yeah.
play. Like so. That's something that was immediately apparent to probably both of us as we started. It was like, oh, we're good at guessing numbers. Yeah. So what numbers are these? What fate? Arcana. Shipwreck? No wreck. No ship. What happened in here? But like that was something that was immediately apparent to me.
I think for me, the main con that comes to mind after playing it recently, actually, and I think it's because of playing it, like at least a handful of times, maybe a little more at this point over maybe the last half a year.
Mhm.
Um, there is a feeling of when you're playing with people who have played it or are good
Mhm.
at kind of the logical deduction of the game, the way it's done in the game, it can start feeling easy, like
Yeah.
you if you're all kind of on the same page of your experience with this kind of thinking through these steps, then it's pretty common for like the person whose turn it is to put the token under the action that will basically reduce it down to, I think for when we were playing, almost always like a 50-50 chance,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
basically every turn we can get it down on the first try to it's either one of two
Yeah.
numbers,
Mhm.
and that's kind of like us being on the same page of like if it's my turn I can think to that extent, and then I know like Daniel, and we played with his dad too, like
Mhm.
they can discuss it and narrow it down to that extent too. And so in that way, it gets kind of easy.
Mhm.
And I guess it's not the flow isn't always the same, right? Because
No.
the cards and the rules that are out there does have a good variety among the 20 cards in the base game. But it's still that end result of like, okay, every person's turn, we're going to be able to get it down to 50-50. And
Right.
so it just kind of, that part kind of starts feeling the same,
Mhm. Yeah.
because we're so good.
Oh yeah, pat on everyone's back. Here's your pat. Oh yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I think
um, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of my con, that of how over time, maybe after a handful or several plays, that part will kind of get the same, right? And that's kind
Mhm.
of that can kind of affect the excitement of the game, right? Because then it's ultimately you're trying to guess, right? So the quicker you can get to the guess, then that part
Mhm.
will feel the same, and then maybe less impactful feeling as you're getting it right.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's something like I noticed as I played more, as Ben had said. Like initially, yeah, not to say my rating of the game, which we'll talk about later, has dropped significantly over time. But there's definitely that kind of like it wasn't like, oh, I like the game, I still love the game, and I will forever I like the game. And I guess that's not typically how people perceive games. Like you might that initial kind of honeymoon phase probably occurs for most gamers. Maybe yes. Ben is nodding his head, so I'm not completely crazy. But yeah, so I did like the game a lot more initially. Not to say I don't like it now, but it's just not the initial kind of honeymoon phase. And I did. I want to point out the replayability aspect, which Ben kind of touched upon with the like knowing what to guess and always narrowing down to two. Like initially, yeah, it was like we were like giving each other not as amazing clues. And so we're at maybe 3 or 4. Wait, did we just incriminate ourselves in saying now that we're noobs? But whatever. That never happened. Yeah, so like the replayability does kind of, I don't want to say diminish, but in some sense it does, where it's like it's always a kind of we narrow down because we start syncing up and how we think and what stuff we match, which I guess clues we give to um, which numbers we use for our clues and whatnot, and so it becomes relatively predictable over time. But again, also that's part of the appeal, right? With the simplicity, which I mentioned earlier, like it is a simple game because it's easier to pick up, and like maybe it's just the nature of the game that over time it becomes more predictable. But that's because it's relatively simple. There's not that many combinations of different actions you can do, and I know there are different difficulty settings that I guess I'm moving on from that, but like there are different difficulty settings for the game. But here, I think it's just moving the lives in effect that you have. That's correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's one way to do it, and the most direct way to do it. But I think we're able to clear it with like the hardest difficulty about like with 2 or 3 times slaying or something like that. Like it was really fast, and it was like, oh, I guess we're amazing. I guess we're experts. I guess that's how we were able to label ourselves as experts because we tried the hardest difficulty that the game was designed with, and we were able to pass within a handful of tries. So I mean, like that was like, I guess kind of a second con that I had in mind. I was like it is one way to do it, but it's not the best way to do it. But also, I'm not a terribly creative person, so I could propose a better way in doing so. Maybe a fewer Arcana cards. I don't know, but it was a little bit like, oh, okay, we pro now. And then yeah, but I mean, again, that is part of the simplicity of the game, which is an appeal factor maybe for some people, and maybe yeah, just when starting, but like that kind of dies off as you play more and more. But yeah.
I think for me, the last con that really comes to mind is um, part of the production. And I should have mentioned this as also a pro. Like I actually really do like the production. Like I did mention like the art and the kind
Mhm.
of graphic design and style to it, and like this white box with this kind of glossy artwork. Like this is really nice, and like the size is great. Like this is a great size. Like kind of chunky
This
but
is a
still small.
chapstick
It is.
reference.
It is like a sturdy box. Like it doesn't like flex. It's like
Mhm.
a good thick material, and then everything fits inside. But then small things, like I remember when I first got it was, for me at least, and this is why it's a small con because it might not apply to everyone. It's like I always want to sleeve my cards, and I think kind of planning ahead, testing a little bit. If I were to sleeve these, I don't think everything would fit in the box anymore.
Fair.
Or at least I did get the expansion, which is like another set of, I think, around 10 new cards. And so with those sleeved, then yeah, not all the components will fit. But it does fit right now with the unsleeve, so that's still okay. And in this case, I was basically okay with not sleeving it because these aren't cards you're actually holding in your hand or anything. Literally just lying on the table and you just read the rules, so they're not going to get like a lot of wear and tear from passing around or anything like that. So that's why it's not a big deal either for me. And I think one thing to maybe help with that would have maybe been making like the bag, which is where all the fates that you're drawing from each turn, drawing the 2 each turn, where the bag maybe could have been smaller. Like it's a nice, I think this is called felt bag with the pull string. So it's nice, and it's even embroidered with the game logo, but it's like it feels like it's like it could have been half the size. I don't really think there's a reason why it's like this much empty space.
I guess maybe to shake these, but like you can also just do that.
Yeah. And it's not like if it's shorter, like it'll be easier for you to like just look in. Like you're just not looking at it anyway when you're drawing, right?
That's true.
Seeing the numbers you're drawing. So
that is true.
It's a nice bag, but I think it could have saved space if it was like half the size, maybe. Unless there really is something they tested about. Yeah, people will peek more often if it's short.
It's like, oh.
So that was, I mean, so it is a good production, but yeah, not able to sleeve the cards and fit everything. So small.
These are expert gamer issues. For me, it's like, oh, that's fine. No big deal. But
I mean, I do like it more than I dislike it, but I am.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Something.
I mean,
that might matter.
Like that's where we're at. It's just like when I'm picking at this mountain being too high. Like that's all we got. It's a perfect game. Good job, this is Kevin and Matthew Bishop. Very well done.
And so with that, I think that those are our cons for the game. And so going on to our ratings for it, and Daniel guesses the weights. Wait.
Which
John doesn't get to guess the weight. Daniel gets to guess it and win a copy of a game that he has already.
No, I need to, then I can play against myself twice because I'm not good. Rating wise, I would go if and this is my first time rating a game, so maybe I have to calibrate over time. But I think I would definitely give it like 7. So 7.00. 01. The 1 is 7 because I think it's a very solid game. It's a very decent, very well done. I think factoring in the simplicity but then like the reduced replayability over time, I think, and then I think the nice mechanics, but then the discrepancy between mechanics and the theme of the game, I think it's for me, it's just a very solid game. The 0.01 was it necessary? Absolutely. It's because of the initial enjoyment. I really enjoyed it initially. I think just the satisfaction of getting it right made me feel a lot more accomplished about my life and my logical abilities than I thought I would. So it was quite fun on that regard. So I give it a 0.01 bump from the run-of-the-mill C. No, that makes it sound bad. It's a good game. I swear. So 7.01.
Okay. And then the weight you're guessing for the game?
I'm a noob. So it's not the lightest game. So if I'm not mistaken, like 1 is like Jenga. Okay, so it's definitely not Jenga. But if 3 is medium, we're looking at 2.01.
Okay, 2 points. You and your 0-1. You and
Zero
your
one
point zero.
five, which rounds up to 2.02.
2.02. Okay.
Wait, if I get this right, can John get a copy?
No, what?
No.
No, why would
Oh, that's
he?
just my
I mean,
work. I guess.
you
Yeah,
can donate the copy to him if you
John.
feel so generous.
We'll see. We'll see. My calibration's not perfect, so it may be like 5 or something, and then, or maybe if you, yeah, maybe if you didn't, maybe if I'm spot on, you can put in a 5, and I'll bump it up a little bit to the next significant figure. Anyways,
So
two
two
point
point
zero
zero.
two zero two zero two.
Okay,
So
0.2. 0.2.
0.15 rounds up to 0.2. I got 0.2, 2.02. Anyways.
Okay, and then before we go look on Board Game Geek for the weights, I will say that my score, I actually just changed it while you're talking.
Is I had the 0.01 or 2,
No.
1?
I looked back to the ones I had, other games I'd rated, and I was like, there's still something that's not quite pushing me to the rating I had given it. And so the rating I give it now is a 7. I'm not copying you, okay?
No, you're not, because I got the 0.01.
I had it at 7.5, probably from the first time we played.
Yeah, it was really good. It was,
Comparing it to, because 7.5 for me, I do know that's like up there in like my light games, you know?
Yeah, like a go-to light game, kind
Games.
of.
Like at most, I would ever give a filler. I think I mentioned like an 8, which I don't think I've done yet. But then comparing it to the ones I gave 7.5, I think there's just a feel of I wouldn't return to this as much as those 7.5. So put it at a 7, which is still good, solid 7.
See? C4, amazing, which doesn't begin with a C. Never mind.
Yeah, so because like other ones I had given like a 7 are like Similo and Coup, which I think all have kind of the kind of novelty and simplicity that I like, but you know, maybe over time just won't go back to them as much as my 7.5 games like The Mind, which I think is just hilarious still. Those kind of moments, and the Crew I think has more replayability with all the missions.
Definitely.
But yeah, so a 7 from me, 7.01 from Daniel. But I do even want to say now, like, and maybe I'll say this again towards the end, that I definitely think it's worth checking out though. Especially as like a game from Miramorph Games, the publisher. Like, they've only had a couple games, I think. And so this has really kind of gone under the radar, I would say. And I believe even Z Garcia from the Dice Tower said the same thing years ago when he came across it. He's mentioned it quite a few times in his top lists, I think. And so finally being able to check it out, it's like I do agree with him. Like, yeah, it really hasn't gotten attention, but I think it should.
Yeah.
So then going to Board Game Geek, we will see if Daniel got the weight correct. So
2.015.
You said 2.02.
Which rounds up to 2.02. Do they have a third decimal point? I don't think so.
2.11. You're close.
My calibration. Close. Okay, so it's off by what, 10%?
You're much better
5%
than John.
Yeah, I'm practically a pro.
Yes. And then
Just
the
kidding.
game has an average rating of 7.5, which is what I originally gave it. But people are still whoever have come across it, I guess, seems to like it quite a bit. And
well, it makes sense. Yeah,
I think it is worth checking out. It's definitely one of those underrated games or games that people don't hear about.
Yeah.
Also
like because I bought the game after we played it, right? A handful of times too. So I mean, that's like I live by my own advice.
Yeah.
Yes.
He doesn't buy games that often. He's just starting to get
like, granted, except for the ones behind the door, but like and that door, but like other than that, it's just this one. This is the only one
And
that
I
didn't
think
fit.
and the price was good, right? It was, I think
Right.
the base game was like 20,
Yeah. Base game
maybe,
was like 20.
and then like maybe the expansion is like a few more dollars, and then there's
Hmm.
shipping, so it came out to maybe around, like, what is
Yeah.
it? Maybe 28, like under 30
Yeah. Under 30. Under 30.
for all of it, basically.
Yeah.
Right, the game
Yeah.
and the first expansion. So even just the base game
Yeah.
around 20, I think that's a really good price that we've always
Yeah.
mentioned. Like getting something with this much stuff in it for 20 is really good.
Hmm.
Because it is also not, I would say, not quite a filler game, because it is kind of that it can be kind of brain burning deduction. So I would still call it like a light game, not just a filler game, not a
Hmm.
quick one to throw out there, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, so for a light game that has that kind of amount of thought in it, $20 is really good.
Yeah.
And
Oh
so,
yeah.
and I think we both got it from their website directly, Mirror Morph Games.
Hmm.
So yeah, just putting their name out there if you guys want to check it out. And so yeah, this was our review of the Shipwreck Arcana. A 7 from me,
A
7.01.
7.01 from me, with a 2.015 rounded up to 2.02. Wait.
And so if you guys found this video helpful, interesting, hope you'll share it with friends, family, people you play board games with. Hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel and following us on Instagram at I Got Board Game. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.